Step number 4, when the Fed does QE with non-banks. Works a little bit different this time. And just FYI, it took me about 10 takes to do step number 4 because I've never gotten past 3 in the last year of making these videos. But anyway, there's a little joke between me and the editor and all of you guys watching right now. Step number 4, just got to kind of brush it off. It just seems kind of weird. But anyway, very important. So back on track. The Fed starts with a balance sheet, same place, treasuries, bank reserves. I put before and after here to keep it a little more clear. And the focal point of this step, in addition to the last step, is really there's this defined line that the banking system separates the financial economy and the real economy. So if the Fed is buying a treasury or mortgage-backed security, called a treasury this time, not from a bank, financial economy, but a non-bank, they're buying it from the real economy. So let's say this is the balance sheet of the individuals, the average Joes and Janes. They have the 3 bank deposits, the fugazis, the IOUs from the banking system. They also have the loan as a liability. Those fugazis are assets. But let's say they have a treasury as well. And the Fed buys the treasury from an individual or entity in the real economy. The treasury would come all the way across. It would transfer kind of from the real economy over into the financial economy because it would come to the Fed's balance sheet. The Fed would then print up more bank reserves or funny money that would add to the liability side of their balance sheet because they have to create another asset for the commercial banking system. Why? Because the commercial banking system would create another deposit, another IOU, another liability for the individual that sold the treasuries to the Fed. Let's go through this one more time so we're all on the same page. The entity sells the treasury to the Fed. To pay for the treasury, the Fed has to print up funny money, bank reserves, just like they did in the prior step. So that's an increase on the liability side of their balance sheet. But that would add to the asset side of the commercial bank's balance sheet. They would have additional bank reserves. You say, well, isn't that just giving the bank free money? No, because it's also giving the bank an additional liability in the form of an extra deposit. Because what you would be doing if you sold your treasuries to the Fed is you'd be trading bank deposits for those treasuries. You'd be trading IOUs. In other words, you'd be trading bank liabilities for the treasuries. So the Fed couldn't just give them or instruct them to have more liabilities because then they'd be insolvent. So the assets that actually pay for those treasuries are these newly created bank reserves that are liabilities of the Fed, assets of the commercial banking system. And remember, there's really nothing in your deposit account. It's all pixie dust. The only thing this represents is an additional IOU from the commercial banking system to the entity that sold the treasuries to the Fed in the first place. So more importantly, what does this do to the amount of currency units in the real economy chasing goods and services? Well, it adds to the currency units because we've added an additional deposit. We started off with 3 deposits. Now we have 4 deposits. And the asset side of the public's balance sheet really is the same. They don't have any more assets. They've just traded a treasury for a deposit. And since you can't take that treasury and buy cattle, corn, or wheat, but you can use your extra fugazi, your extra deposit, that means it's inflationary. It can be inflationary because there are more currency units chasing the same amount of goods and services. So if we really want to get technical about it, which we actually have to, to give a probability to whether or not we think the future is going to be inflationary or deflationary. This is when the process really starts to become what I would consider money printing, or what most people see in their head when they hear the word money printing. Editor, help me out with the visual. So the main takeaway from step number 4 is when the Fed does QE with the non-banks, we'll use the technical terms here, it creates additional money supply in the real economy, M2 or broad money. It also creates more base money. That's the bank reserves on the Fed's balance sheet. But when the Fed does QE with just banks, like we discussed in step 3, it doesn't necessarily increase broad money. It only increases base money. For the next segment in this 7-part series, the last segment or the entire playlist, check out these links that are probably all around me, and I will see you on the next video.